All right, today's video and lesson is on how part-to-part ratios are related to part-to-whole fractions. All right, so basically we're going to be using rates and ratios to compare things, and we're going to talk about the relationships between them. So yesterday we were sharing something equally. Today we're going to be talking about how we can share things unequally. So sometimes there's reasons to share things unequally. Suppose that your older brother paid for more than half the cost of a video game, and you might think that it's fair for him to spend more time playing the game. I know most of us don't. I mean, if my younger brother paid for more of it, I still think I should get the most time. But as, you know, whatever. So at a party, you might agree that your friend should take a bigger piece of chocolate cake because your friend likes chocolate cake more than you do. Okay, so there's a couple of examples here. Some of them not so much. But we're going to take two sisters, Crystal and Alexa, and they're going to go to a strange birthday party. Instead of a birthday cake, the pairs of party guests are served a large gummy worm to share according to their ages. Since the sisters are not the same age, they are not going to share the worm equally. Crystal is 12 years old and Alexa is 6. Their chewy fruit worm has 18 segments. According to their ages, Crystal would get 12 segments and Alexa gets 6. So the ratio of the girls' ages shares of the worm is 12 to 6, which is also the equivalent of the ratio of their ages, 12 to 6. According to this rule, how would the girls share a 9-segment chewy fruit worm? So what we're going to do here is, since on the 18 segment, they were 12 and 6. Well, now we have half the worm. 9 is half of 18. So now we have 9 segments. What is going to happen to the share of the worm? Well, if we divide this by 2, we get to 9. So since our size has decreased, we also need to decrease our ratio of 12 to 6 by 2, which means we're going to divide both numbers. So 12 to 6, we're going to divide both of those by 2. Okay, and now we have a 6 to 3 ratio, which means that Crystal, right, her in red, Crystal is going to equal 6 segments, and Alexa is going to equal 3 segments. Okay, so the ratio is still equal. It's still a 12 to 6, but it's been reduced by a scale factor of 2. So let's move on. Since Crystal's age is 2 times Alexa's age, Crystal gets twice as many segments as Alexa. The ratio of Crystal's segments to Alexa's segments is 12 to 6 or 2 to 1, which means if we reduced their ratio 12 to 1 or 12 to 6 or 12 to 6 or even as a fraction 12 to 6 down, if we reduce that all the way down, which 6 is a common factor for both 6 and 12, I could divide both numbers by 6 and I would get a 2 on the top and a 1 on the bottom. So if I transferred it back out to my ratio, I get 2 to 1. Okay, so since the ratio 2 to 1 is a unit rate, what do the numbers 2 and 1 mean for the sisters? Well, what this means is that for every, and we're going to talk a lot about for every statements, so for every 2 segments Crystal gets, Alexa gets 1. Okay, so that's the unit rate for Alexa. If we went and we reverse this and we talk about the unit rate for Crystal, then we switch our ratios around and we end up seeing that Alexa gets half of a segment for every 1 that Crystal gets. So I'm going to scroll down my paper just a little bit. Okay, so if we talk about if Crystal equaled 1, okay, and so we're up here, Alexa equals 1. Now we're going to talk if Crystal equals 1. If Crystal would get 1, Alexa is half her age, okay? So Alexa equals a half. So what that looks like as a unit rate is if we would, it simply is the same unit rate or same ratio comparison 1 to 2, but instead of it being a 1 to 2, it's going to be, or sorry, instead of a 2 to 1, it will be a 1 to 2, and then we have to turn, this is for Crystal and this is for Alexa. Okay, so we're doing Alexa to Crystal now instead of Crystal to Alexa. So this means that once we turn that into a unit rate, we divide both sides by 2, and we're left with 1/2 of a segment to 1 segment. Again, this is Alexa, this is Crystal. So that means that for every 1 segment Crystal gets, Alexa gets a half. Okay, now to put that better in terms of a unit rate, then we would say that because our 1 is right here, that for every half Alexa gets, Crystal gets 1. Okay, so that's ratios and fractions are very, very similar, and we are going to take a look at another problem real quickly before I'm out of time. I know these videos have been a little bit longer, and I'm sorry about that, but we're going to go ahead and take a real quick peek at question A, which is the question you need to answer prior to coming to class. So question A says, draw some chewy fruit worms with different numbers of segments that Crystal and Alexa can share without having to make cuts. So they were able, remember, if we go back, they were able to share an 18 segment worm because the 12 to 6 was an equivalent of the 2 to 1, okay? They were able to share a 9 segment worm because 6 to 3 was also equivalent to their 2 to 1. So we are looking right here. What this is really asking us is to come up with an equivalent for a 2 to 1 ratio if this was Crystal to Alexa, or a half to 1 if we were talking about Alexa to Crystal. Okay, so I'm going to stick with this 2 to 1 because it's working with whole numbers and it's going to be a little bit simpler to work with. So if I make a 2 to 1 ratio and I multiply this whole thing 1 by 2 on both sides here, I'm going to be left with 2 times 2 is 4 and 1 times 2 is 2. So if Crystal got 4 segments and Alexa gets 2, so again this is Crystal and Alexa, then this would be right here a 6 segment worm. Okay, so they could come up with a 6 segment worm. If I turned and I took that original ratio of 2 to 1 and I multiplied it by, I don't know, let's do 6. By 6, oh, we already did 6 earlier. Let's change that from the 6 to a 7. So I multiply both sides by 7. I get a 14 to 7 ratio. And now that means that if we add these up, that it's a 21 segment worm. Okay, so there's a couple of examples. What I want you to do is to come up with some more examples, at least 2 new examples that Crystal and Alexa can share that have not already been used in the video.